Okay, let's go ahead and get started on this portion of the stream. We're going to be continuing our journey into learning the Terraria modding. I had an idea as to, what to kind of make. So we're going to continue learning everything that we can to try to make that possible. If possible. It might be a little difficult, um, based off of everything that I've been seeing so far and the sheer amount of um, like if I was planning on doing this for say Calamity, for example, then it's probably going to be a little difficult to try to make it um, make it for all weapons possible, first off, because there's going to be a lot of weapons available. Second, I need to try to make it in such a fashion where it's easy enough to update in a sense, um, which is going to be a little bit difficult because I would have to, in a sense, you know, like find the list of weapons that a particular mod might be using and then try to like search through that and try to build the tech tree based off of it. And that might be a lot of like I don't know how well like the other modders have like built their mods, or like I don't know how Calamity has built their weapon system. Like, do they have it in one particular grouping of weapons so that I can easily reference them to try to build this tech tree that I'm thinking about making? I don't know. We'll have to see. Hey there, Jake. Welcome back to the stream. How's your day been? Um, so um, the idea of the tech tree that I'm kind of thinking about wanting to make to try to make my life a little bit easier in um, vanilla or Calamity or pretty much any other mod, to be honest. Um, it might be dependent on, um, what, um, it might be dependent on, um, how they established their weapon list, right? So, um, so for example, if they have a weapon list that is like, they have a weapon over here, a weapon over there, a weapon over in this other spot, and they don't have it like organized into one specific list that I can reference, I'm going to be in trouble. Because there's no organization, there's nothing for me to kind of reference easily, and I would basically have to hard code the weapons into the tech tree to make it work. Um, so there's that little bit of a difficulty, right? Um, and the other side of things is, well, what happens if um, they add more weapons? You know, um, I don't want to. I mean, don't get me wrong. As they expand upon the um, as they expand on the mods, as they expand on the game and stuff like that, then the likelihood of it needing to be updated is going to be fairly high. You know, I'm I'm already well aware of that. Um, ideally, I would hope that I can build the mod in such a fashion that I won't necessarily need to modify it too much. You know, as as they progress through, like, working on, additional new features in the main game and the vanilla game versus and Calamity, I'm hoping that I can try to build this particular mod in such a fashion where I don't necessarily need to worry about updating it very often. Okay. Um, so, so on one hand, um, I'm kind of in need of like really clean code on their side. And on the other hand, I need to make sure that my code itself is also very clean in that um, it can be, uh, it can just kind of look at like the list of weapons, see that it's changed, and adjust itself accordingly, and build that tech tree based off of the new weapon list without too much, um, you know, without needing to worry about anything more, you know. But again, I don't know. Um, we have yet to kind of see what um, we haven't seen yet in what's been given to us so far. Um, anything like concrete as to like a list for weapons in this particular coding cycle, so we don't really know. Um, um, Now, one of the things that I was doing yesterday was, the coordinate system, right? And um, I was trying to see what the screen coordinates were. I wanted to see what the screen coordinates were gonna give me. Um, so, um, so the screen coordinates um, that they are um, kind of talking about, the screen positions, um, that is basically the position on the overall map. Um, so, let's go ahead and open up tModLoader here, and I'll show you what I mean here because um, yesterday I wanted to see how, yeah, I've been wanting to see what the values were going to be, right? You know, um, how it handles the x value, how it handles the y value, because I don't really know. Um, I have, um, I don't know um, what their screen values were going to be overall. Um, so when we look at our workshop, let's make sure that we rebuild and load here just in case. Um, before, yesterday when we were kind of testing this out, first off, we were looking at this one and you can kind of see that the value changes based off of the position, basically on the map, basically pixel position, you know, which is understandable, makes sense, right? Now, one thing that I was putting this in for the tooltip, which modified um, the overall, like value over here. The problem is that when I look at this sword right above me, it has a problem because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the sword right above me has a modifier to it, and the code that I have is looking for my first sword in there. Here, let me. Um, so yeah, can't really see it right at this moment in time, but um, so it's looking at my tutorial sword, and it changes the text into this value, right? Well, the problem is that that's not very compatible right at this moment in time with, say, a modifier. As you can see, right? Oh, actually, hold on. As you can see here, it's it's not really handling that very well. So when I go over this one here, so the tooltip basically fails on this particular sword, even though um, I can't even I can't even look at that anymore. So that's a problem, right? So um, now the sword might still work per se, you know, and still kills. So but I can't use the tooltip on it right at the moment. So um, but one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of see um, if I can get to um, you know uh, you know can I get to the edge of the world and have it be basically zero. Um, I'm not 100% sure right at this moment in time. So um, one of the other things that I noticed was the fact that, hey, if I want to keep on testing this out, I probably should, give myself some. Well, actually, I don't know if there's any like, developer toolboxes that I can do on this right at this moment in time. But I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter all that much. Um, but you know, I can at least uh, we can just kind of go through here and see, look, I know that I've passed some chests along the way before, so what I wouldn't mind right at this moment in time is, some of the boots or, you know, well, definitely can't find wings in the chest or anything along those lines. So, um, normally when you are developing anything in terms of um, for those of you that don't know, if you've never like coded up a game or anything along those lines, um, whenever you're trying to test out something, you're trying to obviously test out that one little element, right? Um, so, like for example, I'm just checking to see, what the x coordinate is constantly changing to, right? Um, so, um, and you know, it's constantly dropping, which is kind of, the, um, kind of the mindset that I kind of need to, um, you know, you know, um, we got a lot to try to, figure out, work out, and stuff like that. Um, so right now I'm just kind of testing out the coordinates right there, right? Just kind of seeing, what exactly am I going to be seeing? You know, what is the overall dimensions of the screen coordinates? Am I, you know, what can I do with that? That kind of thing. So, and um, you know, the now technically I don't necessarily need to worry too much about the um, I don't necessarily need to worry too much about um, you know, um, I'm most likely not going to be needing to worry too much about the screen coordinates potentially, because um, because um, I might not necessarily need to, in a sense, worry about um, um, you know, I might not necessarily need to worry too much about the overall position um, on where a person is standing in order to do a tooltip bar, right? Or a tech tree. So um, um, but hard to say. I don't know. Um, as I proceed into developing more and more on on this mod, it might be necessary. I might need to adjust the overall tech tree screen to match with the overall position on where the player is standing, right? So, um, you know, so I might need to adjust accordingly, adjust, based off of where the player is overall standing in order to show the window, the tech tree properly without, any difficulties, right? So, um, okay, getting closer and closer to the edge of the world there. Okay. Hmm. Okay. get rid of that. And oh, can't do two at a time, huh? Okay. There we go. But yeah, when you're working on, um, building up a game and stuff like that, when you're wanting to kind of check to see um, what you've coded up is correct, then you want to be able to test it at the same time, so that what you've coded up, is actually, what you're currently working on, so, or, what it actually kind of works the way you want it to work. Okay, so, um, as we can see here, the x coordinate does go, pretty much all the way to 0. Now, if I just jump right into here, okay, interesting. Um, the the amount eventually stops. Hmm. Okay. So wasn't necessarily following the overall um, player position. It was more following the camera on the x coordinate, and eventually it stopped at that 656, right? You know, I was able to push my character all the way to the very edge, and um, they were basically saying, okay, well, that's all well and good, um, but, you know, uh, you know, um, but, the overall position didn't necessarily travel with me in that particular regard. So that was interesting. Um, okay, interesting. Good to know. Didn't find any boots along the way, unfortunately. So, and I don't think our merchant sells any, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he doesn't. Um, and obviously, the core x coordinate will, continue to rise up, to the high amount if I, journey all the way to the right-hand side, which, I mean, um, I've kind of met my demise a couple times on the far right, so, um, but then again, you know, maybe, well, I mean, I was trying to go through all that, at night as well, so that didn't really help me out too much. But I mean, this kind of shows you what the screen is kind of all about in that you know, it kind of follows more the camera than it does the player position, which is good to know. Um, so, um, now I don't know, like if I was to change the scale based off of the position, would the scale kind of change based off of the, um, you know, would the scale just get humongous as I journey over to the right and get super small when I go to the left? I don't really know. I'm not sure. One would think yes, but I would have to make sure that um, I would have to make sure that, you know, kind of keep an eye on, what the values, are overall. So, I want to see like, what, um, just to kind of see like, uh, what the value is, on the map versus, the scale kind of thing, and see if it actually does adjust it on that. Again, I don't know. I don't know whether or not the that scale is something that is adjusted automatically, or if it's something that is a one-time thing. I mean, we've already kind of determined the default is a one-time occurrence, so not much else I can really do about that. Um, um, but we can, um, see whether or not the scale, adjusts. And but here's the thing. At the end of the day, while sure, this, um, you know, like what I'm doing right now isn't really that necessary for me to, um, isn't, totally necessary for the tech tree, right? Well, it might not be, I don't know. But I don't necessarily want to, um, potentially give myself more problems if I don't know the underlying code, right? So, you know, so while technically I don't necessarily need to do anything, um, in order to get the, um, what I'm doing right now in terms of like trying to determine the scale isn't really necessary. It's kind of a waste of time, all things considered, right? Um, because, um, because what I'm doing right now, um, um, might, um, you know, wouldn't necessarily help in the tech tree right at the moment. So that's why I'm like, you know, um, so I need some more light around here. It's too dark. Wow, that hurt. Oh boy. Okay. Right now I'm just, you know, I what I'm doing isn't really that necessary for me to finish off, what I'm doing. But this is kind of meant to, see, um, I want to, I'm trying to understand everything about, you know, what I'm going to be, potentially needing to kind of worry about, or, potentially do, you know. For example, I didn't really know that the coordinate, eventually stopped, right, for the screen, you know. Um, you know, um, so um, so that's why it's like, okay, okay. In a sense, I'm kind of doing a little too much, testing right at this moment in time, and not a lot of coding. Okay. Um, which um, you know, but here's the thing. I need to know, where the limits are on this. You know, like, you know, um, what am I going to be kind of facing if you know, if I'm going to be kind of continuing to work on this, right? Oh, shit. You know, what am I going to be, needing to deal with as I proceed along with my modding journey, right? You know, um, you know, yep, okay, okay. Made it to the edge of the map on this end, so okay. Fortunately, I don't have any kind of summoning ability right at this moment in time to kind of keep myself safe from the zombies that will spawn up behind me right at the moment, so. Hmm. Okay. Oh, okay. There's too much here. Go away. Thank you. Oh, they're welcome back. Okay, so I just want to see where the final range is on this side. You know, what are the dimensions of the map per se in terms of Terraria on like a huge world? Now I know that um, um, the size will change based off of what size you pick based off of the map and stuff like that. So don't worry, I'm very well aware that hey, because I picked a huge map, you know the the overall position is not going to be the same, right? So now I don't know what the um, I don't know what the max is um, overall. Um, so, but you know, like right now I see that it's 132,288 as the max over on this side, and it doesn't go down until about right there when the camera moves. So, um, okay, so yeah, Um, let's go ahead and head back to the home base there. All right, so um, now if I was to go back into the code here, right? Um, and here, let me I want to minimize some of my windows that I have here. So right now I'm like modifying the tooltips, right? But what happens if I do let's code out this, or let's you know um, let's remove the tooltip change anyway. Plus, we're already seeing the fact that this was kind of causing some errors already, right? Which is perfectly fine. I'm still learning. No worries on that, right? Um, so I'm not much I can really do about that. But what we try to do here is we can change the scale, and let's see if um, the overall scale of the weapon, you know, changes based off of the screen position, and what happens there, right? Now I may need to like give myself a weapon that doesn't necessarily have this, but I don't really know if I. Well, I know I do have some like side weapons kind of thing, but I mean, um, it's going to be kind of interesting to try to see, um, you know, will I be able to see any kind of difference or change on this? Because you look at this here. Um, The scale multiplier to be applied to this item will be 1.1 if the Titan glove is equipped, otherwise 1, right? So it's like, so problem is that, when I went to the far left of the screen, um, the screen position was at 656, was it? So, that's a huge scale for the weapon already. So, um, but I mean, they mentioned the fact that this is what you kind of need to do. You know, you want to use this modify item scale here to change the scale perimeter and not use the item scale, which is, what I messed up here with, right? I didn't really know that the modify scale, item scale there, was kind of warning you about the item scale. So, um, but now I know. Now, with the modify item scale in place and the screen position, let's see what happens. I want to see, can you actually see like a noticeable difference? Most likely not. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I'm probably not gonna be seeing too much of a difference, one way or another. When it comes to um, in terms of what we're gonna be kind of seeing here for the most part. So. Hey there, Roblox. How you doing? Welcome back to the stream. How's your day been? This language that we are working with right now is C Sharp. So that's what Terraria is built off of. So that's what we're going to have to use in order to get in order to kind of work on the mod. You know, if we want to build a mod in Terraria, we have to use C Sharp. So yeah. Um, but um, we modified the code here. Um, so we're going to go ahead and bring back the game here. We're going to update, or we're going to build and reload. I did believe I saved it, right? Just to make sure, let's do it again. just to be better safe than sorry. Okay, and now we go back into the tester world here, and the weapon has now gone huge in size. Oh my god, right? So the scale is just, you know, god awful huge, right? Now it's not showing the overall, like I didn't put the code back into the for the tooltip, so I can't necessarily see the overall scale here. Um, but as you can see, this is the original with the massive, um, in that, you have this basically changes, the overall scale of the weapon by 18%, right? So it takes the scale, multiplies it by, 0.18, and then, adds that value back onto the scale again, for it to be massive, right? But, right now the tutorial sword is already in the thousands. So, it should not be this, large in scale, right? Um, so, um, so I'm basically can able to like destroy anything within any formal range. But the question is whether or not will I be able to kind of see any kind of difference as I proceed onwards to left, right? The screen size is changing, or it's continuing to reduce, on the left hand side. So will the overall scale of the weapon also adjust itself? I don't know. I don't know whether or not I'll be able to actually see that change or not. So, um, I want to learn C Sharp soon. I don't know how though. I mean, there's plenty of tutorials, my friend. And if you want to, if you have Terraria and you want to, try to see about like making some very simple mods on Terraria, you can do that if you have Terraria, of course. But I mean, look at some of the other, uh, check out other games that might have some mod and might have a modding community. See which one of them is built off of C Sharp, and you might be able to find some, tutorials out there to kind of help you out with that. So, you know, like right now, like I'm not necessarily showing it right now on screen because we haven't gone back to the site yet, but I'm using some um, I'm using some tutorial sites for for this Terraria mod here, or for like this my tutorial sword here was built off of the tutorials so far that I've looked at, which was the most basic of basic. What they were kind of showing me here was basically a sense of like, hey, this is a my Hello World kind of mod for the Terraria. So it was like, oh, okay, this is simple enough. Um, Now, for those of you that don't really know, when I say my hello world, whenever you look at any kind of programming language, typically the very first thing that you ever code up in any kind of programming language is what you call my hello world or hello world or something along those lines, where you're basically taking the code and seeing how it generates a some form of phrase on the screen, and that's it. You know, and you can do that with any, particular language, C, C sharp, C++, Python, Lua, whatever. Every single language out there has, a form of like, oh, hey, you want to print out hello world on the screen? Okay, well, here's how you go about doing it. Every single language has that pretty much. Um, so it's just Terraria here was already basically saying, hey, you should already have a sense of, what you need to do with C sharp anyway. Like, they're basically saying, hey, you should have a basic understanding of what C sharp is all about before you try to start coding or, start working on mods. Um, but, I have a rough understanding of it. Um, in the sense that I've done a lot of Java, so I mean I have that background. Plus I have a lot of C experience just through college, and while that doesn't necessarily completely equal what I need to understand when it comes to C sharp, like I will never say like C sharp and C is exactly the same. No, they're not. Um, but it does help out in terms of having a rough understanding of C or of C sharp, you know. So I'm not gonna say that it's you know a, an exact match. You know, I'm like Mr. Expert because I learned C in college. No, believe me, there's a lot to C and C++ beyond C. Um, So while there might be some similarities, they've obviously used C to, you know, um, you know, they built, C++ and C sharp off of C. Um, so, you know, so while there might be some amount of similarities in the like, there is, all right, I can use I can use the umbrella here to kind of help out and allow myself to kind of float on down. Although I guess it doesn't really matter all that much. I'm not really going super speedy anyway, so if I had like wings or something like that, then maybe. But so the scale still hasn't changed that much. I mean, we're still in the thousands, so I mean, it makes sense, right? And I haven't noticed any visible, you know, I haven't noticed anything visibly different in the terms of the scale. So, but we are getting closer and closer to the edge here. So, okay, yep. So the scale is just, you know, the screen resolution obviously is, too large for the scale. Now I don't know what um the minimum or the what the maximum is kind of thing to really kind of display the overall sword kind of thing. So um So let's say we modify this a little bit more, right? Okay, so we'll hide the tModder, okay, and we'll go back to our code here, okay, and obviously, the screen position obviously was way too much for the scale, right? So, I I was kind of already figuring that, but still wanted to kind of see what was possible, right? So we're gonna go ahead and code out or comment out that particular line. What I'd like to do now is I want to see what, you know, um, what, what the possibilities are, right? What's the maximum that I can go on the scale for me to still kind of see the sprite or the image of the weapon. Um, so they mentioned the fact that the Titan Glove gives you a zero point 0.1 to the overall size, right? But it's still a scale of 1, right? Well, what happens if we do like say 10 and change that? You know, I want to kind of see, what does the scale do in this particular case, right? That is a lot. you know, just 10 and we're looking at, you know, oh wait, you can't really see it. Let me show it to you now. So, matter of fact, let me go ahead and slow it down some. Obviously I have um, the speed at an extreme amount right at this moment in time. Let us go and use we'll go ahead and bump up um, the use time and the animation to, you know, higher so that it will be a slow, obviously the 100 is the slowest that it can go, right? Um, but let's do like 50 and 50 and, we'll leave it at that for right now. So we'll go ahead and rebuild, and then we'll go back into here. And now here's the animation and the overall scale at just a scale of 10, by the way. So now let's see if I do, say, 20. What am I going to be seeing in the game on that one? You know, what are we going to be looking at in that regard? All right, let me bring the game back up. We rebuild, load up the game, and now I mean, this looks like it's just a bit it just seems to be an extreme size. What did you say? You know, just a little bit. I mean, we're looking at 20 here, okay? And when I was trying to put it at the screen resolution, where the scale was at a minimum could only be 656. Yeah, that's a bit. Um, so okay, so now we have kind of a rough understanding for the screen position right at this moment in time, and we have an idea about the scale, and how to like override the overall scale of the item in question. And now I have a rough idea as to what, I might need to change based off of the uh, if I might need to like modify my overall design of um, the tech tree, if I need to maybe allow for um, them to maybe like zoom in or something like that, if they want to like zoom into the screen to kind of see like what weapons are there, or and maybe allow for a sense of like zooming into um, the tech tree versus zooming out. Um, then there could be a potential for using like a scale in that regard, right? So, but for right now, you know, this was kind of a good little, kind of test to see what I can and can't and couldn't do in terms of the screen position. It gave a little bit on what this screen position was all about, in that it was more following the camera's screen position overall versus the player's position, which is understandable, you know. Um, and we could see the minimum and maximum based off of the overall size of the map. So now, if I'm doing a tech tree and I'm allowing for the player to potentially access that tech tree at any particular spot on the map, then I may need to use the screen position to adjust the that that window accordingly. Potentially, right? You know, um, for example, if I was to say like, hey, I want to make a window that shows up for, or let me put it this way. Let's go back into the game real quick, right? Um, Let me make sure that I rebuild because I commented out my code. Um, and now, um, so when you when you go into the exit menu, right? It brings up the UI, right? The user interface for the overall world, the kind of the positioning. Is it modifying the positioning of everything? The inventory screen based off of the screen position, or is there something else going on here? Like, is there something that I can access to determine, um, like, is there a position for just the user interface? The window that the user sees. You know, yes, like if I move around the screen position changes in terms of the X, in terms of the Y, blah blah blah, right? But um, but as you can see, the user interface here doesn't necessarily change. Does that is the inventory and the items changing the screen position um, as well? Is it kind of are all these windows kind of adjusting themselves based off of the screen position? Or is there some other user interface or something like that I'm not seeing yet that could potentially, um, change the overall, um, you know, am I going to need to try to find where these are kind of located at and whether or not I can actually modify? Because you've seen in the Calamity where, people have modified to add like additional window sizes. Is that part of the screen size, the screen position, or is that, some other window interface? Don't really know yet. We'll definitely have to find out and see. Because here, let's head on back here, or let's exit on out because um, you know, while it might not necessarily be screen position, potentially, hard to say, it might have something to do with the overall, like, maybe it might be part of the drawing tiles, you know, um, potentially. Kind of doubt that, to be honest, really. Um, it could be world coordinates, you know, could be this draw to screen, you know, hard to say. But I'm gonna need to figure this part out if I'm going to try to put together any form of tech tree um, to display to the player, you know, when they're playing the game. So the idea, so um, the way I see it right at this moment in time is the tech tree is probably going to be something that is going to be pretty large overall. Like it's not going to be um, with the sheer amount of weapons, with the sheer amount of materials to allow for expansion and builds into higher forms, and the fact that you look at the um, you look at um, Calamity and it adding on a lot more on top of it, trying to put it into say a small little window, you know, such as like the inventory window or some form of like small window, you know, along with it. So like, for example, like if I go over to the for the guide here, right? And I tell them, "Hey, I want to craft and here's the crafting material and here's like, okay, well, we have all the possibilities I can build, right? Which doesn't really work very well because, the chest doesn't really make much there. But, maybe let's switch it over to the lead bar, right? Here's all this, potential, um, you know, yes, let's head back into the safe building here, there, guys. um, so, um, So I go to him and I go, hey, lead bar, what do you make? Here's all this, screen that pops up. Trying to do this as like a tech tree in this, potentially small of a window isn't going to be very helpful, especially when you look at this lead bar and you're like, okay, well, look at all the things that a lead bar could potentially build here. Okay. And that's an extreme amount, right? Now, granted, a lot of people aren't really, a lot of people probably aren't going to be caring too much about, oh, the lead bar I can use to make the wood chest or something like that, right? It's probably, most players aren't really going to care too much about that. But, you know, even still, if it gets to the point where like they're trying to figure out like what weapons can build into like some of the larger more advanced weapons that are out there, then they're gonna want to know. And having a small user interface like this isn't gonna be very helpful. So, but that's gonna be it for tonight. I'll go ahead and kind of close on down here for the time being. On this particular coding session. Obviously, I didn't really do too much, but um, it gives me a little bit more of an idea as to what I'm kind of working with, what I need to kind of look for a little bit more. Tomorrow we'll be looking more at the drawing tiles and seeing what that is all about. Now I understand what screen coordinates is all about, or have a more of an understanding about the screen position at the very least. So that's fine. I get that. I can actually kind of use that to my advantage if I want to make anything else that, like, hey, I want to build something like in the sky at this particular screen position or something like that, right? I could try to do something along those lines. But for right now, we're I don't necessarily want to um I don't necessarily want to mess around with that too much, at least not for this particular um you know I don't see a need to do that with the tech tree that I'm thinking about trying to do, right? Um, so, but we'll tackle drawing tiles next time. We'll look at what um, converting coordinates is all about, and that kind of jazz. We'll see what we're kind of looking at. We're looking at the drawing screen and so on and so forth. So um, I really don't necessarily need to worry about too much about the mouse or mouse position, mouse screen. Don't really need to worry too much about that because I'm not expecting the tech tree to kind of follow um, or not to like move the screen for the mouse. I might need to still kind of move where the mouse might be kind of looking at, but for the most part, I don't really see a need at this time to consider the mouse at this point. Um, so my thought line right now is to try to create something that I can, like a small little icon that the player can click on that will probably like create a full screen, much like the map, to show a tech tree and that they can kind of close back out and go right back to their main screen, right? So that's the idea. We'll see if I can actually pull it off. But that's going to be it for our coding session. We're going to switch on over to Warframe here. So I want to thank anybody that was watching this, especially those of you that are watching on YouTube. I want to thank all the chatters in chat right at the moment. Jake, Tank, and Roblox for stopping by and chatting with me during this portion of the session. Um, but we're going to go ahead and stop here and move on to some Warframe. So um, if you're catching this on YouTube later, you're welcome to go check out my Warframe playlist if you have any interest in seeing some gameplay there. But there'll be more Terraria videos to come, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight. So want to thank everybody for watching. Check out the description for multiple links down there. Like and subscribe would be fantastic. But that's going to be it for tonight. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully I catch you next time. But until then, take care. Have a good night. Stay healthy. Stay safe. And I'll catch you strangers next time.